Welcome to our Monday night program on Globespan 24x7. To all our viewers out there, we want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course to Devin Bisu, our technical specialist. To you, our audience, we want to thank you for being a part of us as we bring you events in the news on this Monday night program. Tonight, as we bring this program and as we celebrate American icon, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Day here in the United States, we are very honored to have people like Dr. King who walk the face of this earth. Had it not been for people like Dr. King, non-white people like you and I would still be maybe riding at the back of the bus in the United States. But with that movement that Dr. King started in the United States, it spread around the world. And today, even though there are still many discrimination around the world, I think Dr. Martin Luther King would have been happy to know that since his days, things have changed tremendously. I was privileged to listen to the address by the governor of Virginia when he said that all of America's history, whether good or bad, should be told to the people. America had some bad history, some really atrocious ones, some terrible ones. But also America has some great history on its side. So today, as we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Day, we want to salute all America and to wish everyone all the best. As we celebrate this icon in the US, we also will celebrate our icon in Guyana and the Caribbean. Only last week, we had one of our true patriot, Colin Moore. He passed away, and Dr. Rose mentioned that, and we want to extend our condolences to the family. This evening, as we come on the program, I want to just briefly talk about three icons that passed away in Guyana recently as well. The first of them, of course, is Mr. Ron Bob Simple. He passed away a few days ago in Florida from COVID-19 implication. He was indeed a Guyana icon, an actor, and for those of you who know him, he's a cultural icon as well. He was well known for his support of Marcus Garvey's philosophies, which led to the production of The Spirit of Marcus Garvey. Also passing is another icon from Guyana, Mr. Balram Singh Roy. He was a former minister in the 50s and 60s under the PVP administration. He was 101 years old, and he passed away 2 days ago in London. And of course, we had the sad news yesterday when I think maybe one of Guyana's most illustrious businessmen and entrepreneur, Isu Prasad, a real fighter who stayed there and fought the battle. He stood up against the politicians, and he rose to build a company of DDL. He and Mr. Komal Samru together, they built a tremendous empire, the best rum in the world. He was also the chairman of the only indigenous bank of Guyana, Demrar Bank, and of course the president of IPED that gives so many thousands of loans to farmers across Guyana. I saw in today's posting that the Honorable Attorney General, he made a tremendous, great posting on both Mr. Rai and Mr. Isu Prasad. And we want, on behalf of Globespan 24x7, and to all Guyana, we want to pay our tribute to these great men who tread this earth, and their absence will definitely be missed. So again, our sincerest condolences to all the family members of our fallen heroes. This evening, we are very honored to have with us no stranger to Caribbean politics. Like Guyana, Trinidad also is a very mixed society. And indeed, I believe that they have not gone through what we did in Guyana in the 1960s, where Minister Sinanan might have been a very young boy at that time. But we went through some really bad experience in Guyana. Trinidad was lucky to not have gone through those challenges. but we do have problems with both countries, especially in our ethnic makeup. Despite all the challenges and all the progress we have made around the world, we still have challenges. So tonight we are very honored to have with us the Minister of Work and Transport, the Honorable Rohan Sinan of Trinidad and Tobago. Minister, welcome to the program tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sugrim and Dr. Rose, and a pleasant evening to all your viewers and listeners around the world, because I understand your program is carried around the world on the World Wide Web. And it's a great pleasure to be part of this program. I feel privileged when I looked at the cast that you have already interviewed in the past. So I feel honored, and it's a great pleasure to be on this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Dr. Rose, we want to welcome you again on the program.
Thank you, Charles, and welcome Minister Sinanan to the program. I hope you'll have an enjoyable evening with us. And at this time, I take the opportunity to wish you a happy, healthy, safe, and prosperous New Year.
Thank you, and I extend the same to you and your team.
Okay. Thank you, Minister. Before I get into the question, Minister, I want to tell our audience that on Wednesday night program here on Globespan, Dr. Vishnu Bistram will pay tribute to the two icons of Guyana, Mr. Balaram Singh Roy and Mrs. Superstar. So please tune in on Wednesday also to watch that tribute to these two Guyanese icons. Minister, you have been a member of the PNM, and I've read through some of your profile that your family seems to have been members of the PNM from as long back as you can remember. Why did you join your family join the PNM and not the UNC?
At the end of the day, that's a personal choice. My father was a businessman way out in the country in Sandy Grande, and he supported everyone. He supported everyone, and I mean, the family was very close to both the UNC. It wasn't the UNC in those days. It would have been the ULF. And I remember even Basdev Pandey coming by our home, by our business place, having meetings and so. So we were friendly with both parties. I know my dad was very close to the late Kamaluddin Muhammad, people like of that era. And for some reason, the family gravitated towards the PNM. My sister represented the PNM. My brother represented the PNM. And here I am as a deputy political leader at this point in time, and also Minister of Works and Transport, given that privilege by a PNM government.
And I like that, Minister, because like Guyana, like the PNM in Trinidad, people see us as more of an African-based party. Like the PNC in Guyana, we see it as an African-based party, and the UNC in Trinidad being more of an Indian-based party like the PEP in Guyana. So I'm also glad when people of different ethnic group go into what is supposed to would look like the opposing side, which is you're going to a party that seems to be not the one that is representing your ethnic group. And I wish that more Trinidadian, more Guyanese can gravitate to parties that seem to be against their ethnic origin and be a part of that. And I believe that changes can be made when you get on the inside, not from the outside. So I must compliment you for that, Minister. Minister, you became a temporary government senator in 2015. But I was told also that you are to the UNC as Jack Warner was to the UNC. You are to the PNM what Jack Warner was to the UNC. That is one of their major financiers. Is that really truth into that statement?
There's no truth to that. Again, I served as a deputy chairman of the Tunapuna Corporation for about 9 years. And when there was a change in the leadership of the PNM, Dr. Rowley took the rail, and I was offered a deputy political leader position because that is an appointed position. I came on to work closely with Dr. Rowley in 2011 as a deputy political leader. And it was a time when we had to rebuild the party because the party came out of a defeat under the hands of the former Prime Minister Kamala Prasad Bisesa and the former Prime Minister Patrick Manning. The UNC were very victorious in that election, and we had to rebuild the party. I worked with Dr. Rowley. From then on, I was appointed campaign manager for the 2015 election. We put in a lot of work, and we were successful. A lot of people thought it was an impossible task to bring the PNM back from that defeat in 2010 to come back and take the reins of power in 2015. And I have worked with very closely with the Prime Minister and many others, because it was a team effort. It was no individual. Clearly, I am no Jack Warner. Jack Warner is in a league by himself, very good friend of mine. However, in 2020, I was again appointed campaign manager. And again, everyone thought it was a very difficult election for us to win, but we came out successful. And again, I was reappointed as Minister of Works.
But you did not contest any constituent as a member of parliament. You're appointed as senator, a government senator, and then appointed a minister being a senator. Why didn't you contest a constituent?
Again, I basically for the two elections, 2015, 2020, I managed the national campaign. It would have been difficult to come to, actually contest in a constituency and then manage the national campaign at the same time. I think in the wisdom of the Prime Minister, the position of campaign manager was a very important position, and I took that position on. So I worked in all the constituencies and to ensure that the party was well organized, because at the end of the day, the People's National Movement, we have been around since 1956. We have contested every single election in every single electoral district for local government, every single constituency for the general election. And once you have that party, you have that machinery, you have to really manage it in a way that you can get the results that you're looking for. And Dr. Rowley trusted me in 2015 to be the campaign manager. My political experience at that level, a lot of people would have questioned it. I know he went under a lot of flack for taking that brave step to put me in charge of the national campaign, and we were successful, and again in 2020. So everyone had a part to play. My role then was the national campaign manager for those two elections.
Excellent. And of course, after the election, Prime Minister Rowley appointed you Minister of Works from 2016, and you've held that position since.
I can tell you that, after the 2015 election, I spoke to Dr. Rowley and I told him, I really was not inclined to get into active politics. So that is why 2015, I really didn't take any part. And then 2016, he spoke to me and he said, look, we need to get on with things. And I came in 2016, in November 2016, and I'm still here. I can tell you as the Minister of Works, prior to me taking that office, there were several ministers of works over a 5-year period, maybe about 8. So I feel very, satisfied that at least I held the position for the last 6 years. As I can tell you, 6 years prior to that, they had about 8 ministers of works.
Yeah, I know. That's I'm telling you. So the Prime Minister Rowley do have some confidence in you to keep you as Minister of Works and Transport from that time until now. So that must have been something good that you're doing. And we'll get into some details. We have some question about that ministry, but Dr. Rose, over to you.
Thank you, Charles. And again, welcome, Minister Sinanan. Now, your ministry is the Ministry of Works and Transport. And from my research, it shows that it is one of the largest ministries in the country, with probably the second largest budget. Now, since you've taken over that ministry in 2016, how has transportation improved in Trinidad and Tobago?
Okay, so basically, coming into the election in 2015, under the Ministry of Works and Transport, there were several major projects that had to get started. One, we had to expand the highway network in Trinidad. You'll recall that the highway from San Fernando to Point Fortin, although under the previous PNM 2008-2009, that went out for tender and so, there was a lot of problems with it during the 2010-2015. It was shut down. The highway really was going nowhere. The contractor would have deserted the project, and there were a lot of challenges to restart that project. We had to go through the court of arbitration and to get the contractor off. We recovered $1 billion, the bond funding, and we actually had to restart that highway. That highway is due to complete in the latter part of this year, which is a significant improvement on the road network from San Fernando all the way to Point Fortin. Now you can drive from Port of Spain all the way to Point Fortin, from Port of Spain to Point Fortin, which is almost half the country on the national highway. We also had plans for over the last 50 years to take the highway from Arima or Wallerfield to Sangre Grande. For some strange reason, that never happened over the last 50 years. And I was charged with actually getting that highway network going. And again, this year, we should be able to complete the phase on that highway that we started, and then we go on to another phase. So we actually have two major highways going on at the same time. Then we had plans for the highway to go all the way to Toco. Now, if you understand the geography of Trinidad, we are trying to have a network to drive to all parts of the country on a highway network. So we have this highway from Valencia all the way to Toco, which is another point up on the northeastern side. And again, I was charged with that. And again, I'm happy to see that this year, sometime later on this year, the first phase of that highway will be completed. And you have a new first-class road driving all the way to the Toco Road, and then continue on to Toco, where we hope to develop a port in the not too near future there. Also, we have the Maruga Road. So what I was able to do is to get the 4 major highways up and running. And that is the first time in Trinidad with an economy that is, we do have our cash flow problems. We have had some serious reduction in our revenues, but we were still able to start 4 major highway networks, and we still have them ongoing, even though we have a pandemic happening. A lot of major projects that were on the drawing board for years, we were able to get them started, interchange, you name it. Even our existing road network, where we do have some challenges in the maintenance part of it, we have spent a lot of time to develop that to sort of reduce the traffic congestions. We're working with our bus service as well to make the bus transportation the number 1 mode of public transportation mass movement, because unfortunately at this time, the plans for a rapid rail, the country just not in a position to afford something like that. So in terms of the traffic congestion, a lot of internal roads have started, major highways, major intersections, and even during the pandemic, these projects are still ongoing. So I would think that in terms of transportation, yes, we have made some inroads. We are working with the legislation now. For the first, since two years ago, we actually launched a U-turn system in terms of road safety. And the rewards of that have been phenomenal. In 2020, we had the lowest road fatality in 50 years. And in 2021, the lowest in 65 years. Now, 65 years ago, we probably had a lot of bull carts, just a couple vehicles on the road. And 65 years later, we can boast of having the lowest road fatality because of some of the initiatives that we would have put in place over the last 3 years. And we have done this working with the IDB. We are using technology to drive our transportation department. And very soon we should be at the point where most of the services in terms of the licensing office, driver's permit, renewal of permits, transfer of vehicles, and so will be done online, which is a big move from where we were a couple of years ago.
Now, I want all our Trinidadian listeners to hear this question, and all Caribbeans. You have embarked on one of the grandest transportation projects in the history of the Caribbean. Your plan is to purchase 300 buses, am I right? Half electric, half gas. When you say gas, you mean gas or gasoline?
We are looking at a combination of some CNG buses, because we do have CNG here, electric buses, and then we still do have to keep just a couple of the gasoline, the diesel buses, because of some of the terrain that we have to maneuver. we are guided on that by the manufacturers. But the drive is to move to electric vehicles. The government policy has been clear that we are looking to move the entire government fleet to electric vehicles. The Minister of Finance have, in this year's budget, opened up the whole importation for electric and hybrid vehicles. And the government policy is clear, we should be moving in that direction.
The data is showing that the average person in Trinidad has 2 cars. How accurate that is, I don't know. So who are going to be traveling in these buses?
We do have a significant amount of the population that travels on the public transportation. As a matter of fact, I think more people move on public transportation. Yes, Trinidadians, we do have a lot of vehicles. Unfortunately, we may have 3 or 4 vehicles in a single home. And you find the 3 or 4 vehicles end up in the same place on the same day. And you question, well, why? I mean, our gasoline have been subsidized significantly in the past. And, you know, for some reason or the other, you know, we never looked at that cost. However, times have changed. I think one of the reasons why a lot of people own cars and still use their cars is because we do not have an efficient public transportation system. In order to have that transformation from the citizens using their own vehicles, we have to give that security and that comfort and that assurance that the system is efficient and you can depend on the system. And that is where we're using technology to even drive the bus service. We're looking at the technology where you can use your handheld device and track where the bus is at what time to ensure. But we have to get the bus service up to that point where people are comfortable to leave their cars at home. Because one thing we recognize, no country can build themselves out of traffic jam. We can build as much highways as we want. We cannot build ourselves out of traffic jam. The bottom line is that you have to have some level of mass transportation. But the citizens will only utilize that if they are confident that the mass transportation, the public transportation, runs on time, is safe, and efficient. And that is where we are looking at taking the public transportation now in Trinidad and Tobago. We're even looking in terms of down the road specific lanes just for the mass transportation. We do have a bus route in Trinidad, and that route is designated just for buses and maxi taxis. We do have some cars on it, but those are temporary permits that you can pull off at any point in time. That road, which stretches from Port of Spain all the way to Arima, is just for mass transportation. And we're hoping to use a lane now from Port of Spain, which is down in the west, all the way down to the south, where we can designate one lane just for mass transportation. Because, I mean, again, we have to encourage the citizens that it is more economical, it is faster, and it is safe and efficient and dependable, most of all, to use the public transportation. That's what we're working on. And we're using technology to drive that.
You're also in charge of coastal erosion. And looking at the geography of Trinidad and Tobago, or Trinidad of itself, its coasts are always being eroded. What plans you have in mind to fix that almost permanently?
Coastal erosion is not necessarily just a Trinidad problem. We have climate change. It's happening around the world. It is a serious problem. And especially for small islands like us, I see 2 challenges for us in the future. And it's not traffic jam. It is coastal erosion and flooding. Those are the 2 problems that will challenge us going forward. In terms of the coastal erosion, we have actually set up in the ministry a division just for coastal erosion. We call it the coastal. We have a coast director of the coastal department, and they have to look at all the areas. We recently launched a national coastal monitoring program where we actually engage a company to look to map out both Trinidad and Tobago. And we actually have a program out into the water that's showing us the most vulnerable areas, measuring the tides and everything. That's a national program we have out there, the Coastal Monitoring Program. We're working with the IDB as well. We're working with CAF, and they're designing projects and programs for us to look in terms of the coastline, because we are losing a lot of coastline. Down in the east, the island is seriously threatened there. Down in the south, I mean, you can actually see the difference in a couple of years. I can give you a little experience that I had. I once bought a piece of land on the East Coast, and within 3 years, I saw about 20 coconut trees out in the ocean. Now, coastal erosion is something that you thought one generation may not see the difference, but within 2 or 3 years now, you're actually seeing a significant difference on the coastline. And after 3 years, I realized, look, you have to, come back in if you want to build on those spots. Because just last week, Sunday, I got up at about 5 o'clock because our beaches are open at 5 o'clock due to the COVID restriction. And I decided to take a walk on the sand. And there were some areas you just could not walk because homes, at least 50–60% of those homes had gone to the sea. So it is a serious problem, and we are working, again, we have the National Coastal Monitoring Program that's going on around Trinidad and Tobago. We have this unit, the Coastal Protection Unit, and we're working with CAF and the IDB to help us going forward, because that coastal erosion is a very expensive area. It is not cheap to protect the coastline, because you can't, I mean, you see people trying to use tires and little concrete. That's not going to hold back the ocean. And here in Trinidad, we do have a serious problem. That coastal erosion also affects us inland, because most of our rivers have to all fall into the sea. And what you find happening in Trinidad now, and just like other parts of the world, yes, you have less rainfall, but you have some downpour, so you get more rain in a shorter space of time. And your channels just cannot handle that. They were never designed for that. So that is another major problem that we have, and that you have to fix that with your coastal erosion problem.
They said that Trinidad, more than any other Caribbean island, is susceptible to coastal erosion. But you have not told us how you're going to fix it. Are you going to build sea defenses? How you intend to fix it?
Okay, so right now we have 14 projects going on around Trinidad. So we look at the most vulnerable areas, and we do, I mean, we try to create that sort of atmosphere where you're just not just building concrete dikes and so around. We try to convert some of them into, up on the Mayaro coast, we did a whole broad walk. But what we actually did, we brought in a lot of rocks, and we actually created that, similar to what other countries will do, to have these little breakwater and so on the outside, to try to protect the impact of the water. Coastal erosion, again, that is one coast that we're using that on. We use that down in the south. But then there's some other areas that we seriously have to look in terms of how we re-engineer even the road network, because the cost of trying to protect those areas is going to be significant. And that is more on the north coast and so. But right now we have 14 coastal projects going on around Trinidad as we speak. So yes, there's a lot of coastal work going on.
Thanks. Charles, over to you.
Minister, you brought up a good point in that was raised with you with the transport problem of Trinidad and Tobago. I know I studied in Trinidad in 1980, and I remember going from Ekiaf in Centeno to Port of Spain for the West Indies England match, and it took you like 6 hours to get from Centeno to Port of Spain on a maxi. And that was in 1980. So I can imagine now with all the problems or increased cars in Trinidad. Minister, have you considered carpooling as one of the solutions to solve the problem of transportation?
So good news. Now, although we have close to 1 million cars on the road in Trinidad, it wouldn't take you 6 hours. The road network moves a little faster, because what we were able to do a couple of years ago, we instituted a program called the East-West Corridor Traffic Alleviation Project. And what that project entails is removing all the traffic lights along the highway. So we started building interchange. We have just completed one in Curep. We are about to start one in a little further up. And the idea is to move all the way up east, removing all the traffic lights. So you have a free flow. However, we do have a problem in Port of Spain because it comes down to a bottleneck. But a lot of work would have gone into some of the other areas to widen roads and so. So, you know, you have that flow. Now it is not as bad as it used to be. But again, we cannot bill ourselves out of traffic jam. And the whole conversation about carpooling and so, what we were working with the IEDB with and the COVID, that COVID pandemic would have really dampened a lot of things. Rather than carpooling, what we put in place is a mass transportation system where we created car parks in some of the areas like the cricket grounds and so, where we have a lot of parking, the stadiums and so. And we were going to shuttle people from there to the capital city. So you park your car there, you offered security, and for a nominal price, you'll be shuttled to your job site. I can tell you the Ministerial works, we started that with our employees. So our employees don't have to come with their vehicles to the head office if they're living in the south. But because of the COVID, that the shift from transportation, because you really didn't want too much people utilizing vehicles, 5 people in a vehicle, because we had to actually institute the law where vehicles were limited to 50% capacity and so. So we put that on the back burner, but it is a program that we work with the IDB on. And once things get back to normal, we will bring that, but not necessarily carpooling, because
public transport. I got it.
Using public transport to a mass movement of people, so they can go back to that, say the Brian Lara Stadium, which is one of the stadium we have, and they have their car there that can take them from there to home. So you get there, you park your car, it's secured, and for a nominal fee, this vehicle will take you straight to your workplace.
Yeah, and I see Barbados, Minister, have a great public transport system. You know, you go to Bridgetown and it's people are there all over, and by the 10 minutes, buses come and they all disappear. You know, so it's a.
I think it's something that we are looking at, and that is why with technology now, there's no reason why you cannot have a properly well organized transportation system using the bus service.
Yes, and I know Minister Trinidad has a problem with space because you know you're limited with land space there. I know you're doing that east-west corridor and the north-south corridor with a highway. Are you thinking of building more highways or expanding the existing ones?
I don't think there's a need for more highways. Once you have that southbound highway, the eastbound, I think the highway network will be sufficient for maybe the next 10, 15 years. What we're trying to do is to use some of the existing road networks and make it a lot friendlier for the population, because there are a lot of space where we can widen, add additional lanes, and so that is really where we're looking at. We do have a lot of roads in Trinidad, and I must say a lot of them they're not maintained the way that we would like to see them for several reasons. We have 4 major highways now ongoing. I think once that is completed, the emphasis will be on maintaining our existing road network, and again using the little technology, adding some value to the existing road network to make it a lot more user-friendly.
Okay. Minister, when we come back, we'll continue this discussion. We take a short commercial break and be back shortly.
Sure.
Stay tuned. Audience.
Make your vacation a memorable one. Enjoy your trip just as if you are at home. Your music, your culture, and your way to have fun with all you can eat and drink at an all-inclusive vacation. You choose the all-inclusive vacation that suits you. July 14th to July 18th is Bollywood on the beach, plus Indo-cultural in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. July 21st to July 25th, Christian Community Week in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. July 28th to August 1st, Curry Duck Curry Competition in Cancun, Mexico. August 4th to August 8th, Caribbean Throwback Week, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. and August 11th to August 15th, Soca vs. Indian, Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. Seats are available from New York, Miami, Orlando, Atlanta, Newark, Canada, Trinidad, and Guyana. Meet up with family and friends, and plus make new friends at all these inclusive vacations. TravelSpan has your vacations, plus cheap seats to Guyana and Trinidad. Call TravelSpan today at 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. In Canada, call 647-557-6200. In Guyana, call 227-1701. And in Trinidad, call 645-1604. The Curry Roti Box is now available. Select your meal. Choose from chicken, duck, goat, or lamb curries, plus pepper pot, chicken tikka masala, lamb vindaloo, and roti. Your choice and your selection. Make up your own Curry Roti Box. We will ship directly to your home or job. Unbox your favorite curries, rotis, pastries, plus order your favorite West Indian sodas and much, much more on allfromonesupplier.com. Treat yourself or send a Curry Roti Box as a gift. Curry Roti Box is available with free shipping to all U.S. states and free delivery in New York. Order now your favorite curries, your fish, meats, pastries, sodas, and much more. Get all your West Indian and Indian food, plus your West Indian groceries from allfromonesupplier.com. It's free delivery and free shipping. Log on to allfromonesupplier.com and place your order today, or call 718-551-3292. Again, that's allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian Products is the only distributor of 100% authentic West Indian products. Dave West Indian supplies fish, vegetables, curry, spices, sodas, and coconut water, plus geese and much more straight from Guyana and the Caribbean. For all your shopping needs, visit Dave's Guyana Fish and Grocery Market. Dave West Indian products are also available in West Indian stores, Key Food, and allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian has a full line of the most desirable products to fit all your needs. So visit Dave Guyana Fish and Grocery Market on 118th Street on Liberty Avenue, or in Maryland at 7505 New Hampshire Ave, or any West Indian stores, or allfromonesupplier.com. Dave West Indian, your 100% authentic West Indian product. Folks, the Nest Restaurant is the place to dine for Guyanese and Caribbean dishes. It is the best restaurant in Queens. The staff is courteous, and Dave, the owner, is always there to welcome you. So for a memorable dining experience, visit the Nest Restaurant located at 12717 101 Avenue, South Richmond Hill. Go and make a reservation today, or takeout. Call 718-847-4035.
Welcome back to our program. As we have with us the Honorable Minister of Works and Transport. Minister, we talk about the problem of drainage in Trinidad, as Dr. Rose mentioned to you. And Trinidad is a little more hilly than Guyana. And so Guyana, we are flat on the coast, so we are exposed to the mighty Atlantic. You are exposed as well, but not as so much because of the mountain. Have you considered, I know in Caroni you have a lot of mangrove there that help protect the landmass. In Guyana, they've experimented with the mangrove along our eastern seaboard, and I think that is also helping to withstand the power of the sea hitting into the land. Is Trinidad considering mangrove plantation along the coast of Trinidad to help mitigate that problem with the sea, in addition to the rocks that you're putting to help mitigate that problem?
It is something that was looked at, but the area of the mangrove, the Caroni swamp area, that is not really where you have the major coastal problems. Yes, you do have some problems, but that's not really where the major problems are. What I can tell you, what we're doing about the flooding is that Trinidad we were one of the countries who love to do a lot of studies. We love to bring in these multinationals to come and do a study for us on flooding and do a study. And going into the ministry, what I found is that we had about 6 or 7 plans that we spent a lot of money for. And these plans were just there, but they were just plans. There were no engineering drawings. There was nothing telling you how we're going to be able to accomplish it. It was just somebody's idea, and every time the government changed, somebody brought in somebody and they did another study. What I did is that I got in touch with the Andean Development Bank. And they too came on and they said, look, they could do a study for us. And I was like, wait, we spent all this money on studies. We have nothing to show for it. When I came in, the last study was a study for the Port of Spain flood alleviation, where we spent a significant amount of money. And then the IDB came in and they said, well, you know, that study wouldn't solve the problem, so it's failed. So I said, look, I told the Andean Development Bank, if you want to lend us money, take all these studies and you do a study that you're satisfied with. So when it's completed, you will be able to fund that for us. We took all the studies and we actually created a plan to go forward with engineering drawings, and we looked at the long term, the medium term, and the short term. We took out some of the things that we could do in the short term that you have to do in any case. You don't have to wait for all these plans to be completed to tell you have to drench the Caroni River, you have to build the banks back in the Caroni River, you have to increase the size of the pumps. Nobody has to come to tell us that. The pumps we have were about 30 or 40 years old. The volume of water that they were pushing out, it couldn't work for the volume of rainfall we were getting now. So we started to pick all the low-hanging fruits while the national drainage plan is being worked on. We engaged CAF, they came on, they brought in a consultant for us, comprising of both foreign and local experts. And going forward now, we will have a national drainage plan that we can use to say this is the drainage, the flood alleviation plan for Trinidad and Tobago going forward. Meanwhile, every year we have a very aggressive desilting program. And again, we have a pump and gate program where we're upgrading all the pumps in Trinidad, bringing in new electric pumps, moving out the older pumps, repairing all the gates and so. So it's a major project in drainage because, again, from where I sit, as an island nation, the two challenges we will have is flooding and coastal erosion. And those are two problems that we have really no control over if we don't do what we have to do.
Minister, have you considered underground drainage? Most of Trinidad is higher than the sea level. So have you considered underground drainage?
No, and that is not quite true. The Port of Spain area.
Yeah, Port of Spain is low, but other part of Trinidad.
So yes, so what we're looking at is new drainage, new channels, because some of our rivers, if you compare them to Guyana, you'll think there's a drain.
Yeah, of course.
So our channels just cannot handle the capacity. We were building bridges and so for a 1 in 50-year storm. Within the last 2 years, we have to move away from that and look at maybe 1 in 100-year storm, because you're building bridges now, and after the bridge is completed, you see the new norm, and you said, but the water is almost on the bridge already. And that costs money. Infrastructure now for a 1 in 100-year storm is almost 2 or 3 times the price billing for a 1 in a 50-year storm. But we have no choice here in Trinidad because our channels just cannot handle the capacity for the new norm in the weather pattern. I don't know underground drains and so will solve our problem in most of the areas. What we need, because we do have fast runoff on the street and flash flooding, and so we do have very fast runoff. The problem we have is that once you have a high tide, once you have that high tide, the rivers are filled to capacity, and that is where we seem to get the problem.
Okay, Minister, you have a lot of responsibility in your hand. But Minister, I want to talk about some controversy, if you don't mind. I know there was some issue with the inter-island ferry situation and with the bidding of the ferry to fly Trinidad and Tobago, and you were involved in that kind of negotiation. Was there a fiasco going on there, or was it overreacted by the press?
I don't think it would have been overreacted. What had happened is, in 2008, under the former Prime Minister, Mr. Manning, we brought in new ferries. Well, they weren't brand new ferries, but they were new ferries. They were second-hand ferries working in tip-top condition. And those ferries served us well. What was done then, a company was brought in to manage the ferries and also for the repairs and so. Unfortunately, sometime around 2013, 2012, the records show that the new government decided that they were going to get rid of that company. And once that happened, the maintenance on these ferries was almost none. By 2015, these ferries were almost hopping along. By the time we came in 2016, by the time I came in 2016, the first thing on my plate was 2 ferries that couldn't go again. And as you're aware, ferries are not something that you could just go in a supermarket and buy. You go out on the market, you can't get any ferries. And at the same time that was happening, the cargo vessel that was in service, for some strange reason, had no contract. So I am sitting as Minister of Works, coming in to the office for the first month, and I am bombarded with 2 ferries that can't work and a cargo vessel that is about to leave the shore. So immediately, working with the port, they had to go out, and it took us some time to get the cargo ferries that we wanted. We had to lease new ferries. We had to actually, for the first 3 months, we had to actually use a barge and a smaller cargo vessel. Within 3 months, we were able to sort the cargo vessel out, and we found a vessel that could move the amount of cargo, and it's still working right now. It's working fairly satisfactory for us. The 2 vessels, we leased a vessel. It took us about 6 months to get a vessel. We leased a vessel, then the Prime Minister indicated that we must purchase our vessels and we must put in place a proper maintenance and management team. So we brought back in a company, bought the vessels, and the sea bridge was, I've been working perfect since then. So it was a very challenging time for me as Minister, because I was stunned at the reaction, but I understand why people were upset. Unfortunately, it is something that I inherited, and we had to fix it. It took us about 6 months to fix, and fortunately, we were able to solve the problem. And for the first time between the islands, we have a capacity that we were able to increase the daily capacity by about 2,000 passengers. So we are really where you would want to be in terms of the inter-island ferry service.
But there were allegations then of corruption in the process. Was there any truth to that?
The thing about when in politics, allegation of corruption and things like that is something you're going to have to deal with. In terms of the procurement of the vessels, it is clear that it was a government-to-government arrangement with the Australian government and the government of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, if you're accusing anybody of corruption, then you're accusing the government of Australia of corruption, and this is something that was financed by them, right? So the allegation of corruption have been in the world in this inception of politicians, and it is going to be here long after we are gone.
Okay, so Minister,
remember there was a commission of inquiry into this, and the commission of inquiry showed up that the Port Authority of Trinidad or anybody in terms of government did nothing wrong.
Okay.
What the commission of inquiry showed up that there were people at the port who might have held back information that should have been brought to the management, to the board at the port, not to the ministry, because you had the Port Authority handling these matters. So what it showed up is that there were probably people at the management level who had in their position information that they should have taken to their board. Nothing to do with the minister or the ministry or anything.
Okay. I see Boco Reef is working well now between Trinidad and Tobago. Boco Reef is the vessel that is plying between Trinidad and Tobago?
We have 2 new passenger vessels, the APT James and the Boco Reef. Those 2 vessels were spec'd and built specifically for us here in Trinidad. And that was one of the problems. It's difficult to get a vessel because when you look at that water between Trinidad and Tobago, no ordinary passenger vessel can't work there. And that is why it's so difficult when you go out for a vessel, because we are so accustomed to speed. We want to reach the Tobago in 2.5 hours. And I remember we want to pay nothing. So the government has to subsidize that service significantly. And we had to get vessels that can operate within that water to satisfy the needs of the people. And that is why it took us a while to build our vessels, but in the meanwhile, we rented vessels.
Okay, and I'm sure Dr. Rose want to talk about politics of Tobago, but before you answer that question, I know you're also in charge of the airline, Caribbean Air. That's part of your portfolio, right?
Okay, no, the airport is part of my portfolio. All the airports, all the ports. Caribbean Airline, fortunately for me, because airlines now need a lot of money. They fall under the Minister of Finance. But I do, I work with him on it. I actually was the person who went to the airport 2 days ago when we launched the 9 new aircrafts. And I can tell you that Caribbean Airline they're really doing a fantastic job. Yes, we had to subsidize it during the pandemic, but Caribbean Airlines are on the verge of taking off again.
Minister, I can't, before I ask Dr. Rose to come on, I got to let you know that the Guyana leg of Caribbean Air was one of the most lucrative routes. And Caribbean Air treated Guyanese really, really bad. Guyanese do not forget that, even though a lot of Guyanese still use Caribbean Air. We were overcharged from New York to Georgetown, when the price from New York to Port of Spain was maybe 30% the price from New York to Georgetown. So Caribbean Air really treated us badly, but I know it's not in your portfolio. I thought it was what the Port Authority is, but I just want to let you know the Guyanese were kind of upset with the way they were treated by Caribbean Air.
I'm sure if they haven't learned from that, they will learn the hard way. So,
Okay.
But we have a good team there at Caribbean Airline, and at the end of the day, Caribbean Airline is a business, and they will have to work on whatever shortcomings there are. Because let's face it, Guyana is definitely a major player going forward, not only in the airline industry, and most of, I feel, I feel I can say this openly. Guyana is a major player for the Caribbean going forward, and what probably happened in the past just cannot and will not, take precedence going forward.
Thank you, Minister. Dr. Rose?
Minister, I have something alarming for you here. The population of Trinidad is about 1.3, 1.4 million people. You know how many cars are in Trinidad? Two estimates are showing 1.65 million cars, and another is showing 1.4 million cars.
No, I don't think that might be quite correct. One of the reasons why we're using technology now and we're digitizing the entire license office is because we want to get real figures. Unfortunately, a lot of things, they were manual before. And I am very proud of the steps that we have taken over the last 3 to 4 years at the license office. Unfortunately, a lot of cars would have gone onto the register and never came off. So that is one problem that we have. I think we have close to the last check just about 1 million vehicles. Now, that is why we are looking at even the inspections. And we are clamping down on vehicles that are not inspected, because there are a lot of vehicles parked up all around, derelict vehicles, but they're still on the register. And we're cleaning up that whole thing there now. That new system we bring in, the U-turn system with the demerit points, I can tell you people are rushing to the license office to have their records validated to ensure that vehicles and so are well accounted for. But we do have a serious problem with vehicles in Trinidad. And every day you look at the port, I look at the port from the window at the office, and I see these containers ship coming in with more and more cars, and I wonder where these cars are going to fit if we continue like that.
In space.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the average, and I agree with you, there are really too much cars. But how do you tell somebody, hey, you have too much cars? It's a free country. The government would have taken that decision to take the subsidy off the petrol, and I think we will see more and more people with a more efficient public transportation system moving to that level, because it is really crazy when you look at the amount of cars that we have on the road.
I just want to go back to Caribbean Airlines. And you said that you work closely with the Minister of Finance, who is actually in charge of the airlines. But my question to you is this: is Caribbean Airlines a profitable airline?
Caribbean Airlines was very profitable coming down to around 2010. Caribbean Airlines started to show a profit again just before the pandemic hit. During the pandemic, I don't think any airline would have shown a profit. But based on my conversation with the chairman of Caribbean Airlines, they feel very comfortable that once the airline industry regularizes, that they will be able to at least break even in the short term and be at a position where they can turn a profit going forward. Caribbean Airlines did turn around, I would say, just maybe a couple of months, a year before the pandemic. But that pandemic would have really hit the airline industry very hard. With the new aircrafts and so now, obviously fuel costs will decrease because these aircrafts are more efficient and so. And we do have a very good team at the level of the board, Caribbean Airlines, some very experienced businessmen. And I am very confident that once the industry turns around, Caribbean Airlines will definitely be able to hold its
own. During the 1960s, oil, and to a lesser extent, gas, have placed Trinidad as a developed country within the Caribbean, in the context of the Caribbean and Latin America. But as we saw at the turn of the century, oil prices tumbled. Trinidad was considered the most developed country. It had to import labor, and it had the highest GDP in the Caribbean. Today, that has been reversed. Now, did anyone saw this coming?
I mean, I cannot answer that. What I can say is that even if they did, for some strange reason, no one was brave enough to do what had to be done. Because this didn't happen overnight. I have been hearing about diversification as a child growing up. Every year we talk about it. But at the end of the day, the energy sector is really still the driving force of our economy and will remain like that for some time to come. But that does not say that we do not have to go into emergency gear and look at new streams of revenue, because that energy sector is not going to last as long as we think it will. Because there's a push away now from that type of energy. And then it's really a depleting commodity for us here. We're not as fortunate as Guyana at this point in time. So whether they saw it or not, I don't think in the past what should have been done was done. And we do have to go into emergency mode to look at new streams of revenue if we have to maintain the sort of lifestyle that we have grown accustomed to.
It has been said that Trinidad will run out of oil within the next 10 years. I don't know how accurate that is. But if that's the case, what other resources Trinidad will have to turn to in order to sustain its lifestyle or its people?
Okay, I mean, I can't speak for the energy sector, and I don't have any evidence to say that oil will run out in 10 years. All I can say is that the energy sector will still be the driving force. I don't share that in 10 years we run out of oil. We do have the natural gas, and the policy of the government have been to diversify. We have set up a lot of new industrial parks trying to attract some new streams of revenue. But I do share your point that we are at a very critical point here in Trinidad where serious decisions have to be made about the future. The future of this country will remain in the energy sector for some time to come. And I hope it will not be in 10 years, as you said, or in 15 or 20 years. My prediction, it might be a lot longer than that. But we have to look in terms of we have to develop our tourism industry. I don't think we have done enough for those areas. So we have to look at the tourism, but again, tourism will not give you the kind of resources that we were accustomed to in the oil and gas. We have to look in terms of attracting new industries to Trinidad. What we are working with at the Ministerial Works and Transport, we are looking to develop the maritime sector. So we are spending a lot of emphasis now on the maritime sector to actually put in the sort of infrastructure and the legislation to make the maritime sector a major part of revenue, because that whole blue economy there, that is something that we never really tapped into. And I mean, our position is we are in an ideal position to attract a lot more vessels coming to Trinidad. We're looking at the port. We're also looking at dry docking facilities and things like that, because we do have some deep water harbor here. So that whole maritime sector coming out of the Ministry of Works and Transport, that is where we are focusing on, because we feel that could seriously impact on the revenues of this country.
Okay. Now, as you've been hearing over the past year or 2 years, Guyana received one of the lowest royalty for its oil, 2%. Do you know what amount or what percentage Trinidad received at the time we signed the oil?
And I don't have those figures, as again, I'm not the Ministry of Energy, and really and truly I would want to stay away from Guyana.
Okay.
I don't want to get into that, the Guyanese aspect of their politics and their oil revenues, and so I don't think I'm eminently qualified.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. The PNM has been elected. Well, Prime Minister Rowley elected in 2015. So it's been in office now for 7 years. Now, how popular is the PNM today, given the fact that the economy is struggling, the COVID pandemic killing today, you had what 25 to 30 people dead, and the rising unemployment and inflation?
Okay, running a country through a pandemic is probably one of the most difficult things to do. And you couple that with a decline, I mean, in our energy revenues, and so it is very difficult to satisfy the needs of the population at this point in time. But the People's National Movement, we are accustomed to that. The People's National Movement have been in and out of government. We just won an election in 2020. Nobody said that in our first year or first 2 years, it was going to be easy, because we won that election in a pandemic. We knew that is going to be very difficult. Trinidad is similar to Guyana to some extent. Our population is divided between two parties, basically. And no matter what decision you take, a significant portion of the population will not agree with you, no matter how good that decision is. They may benefit from it, they may like it, but they will not support you with it. And that is why it's very difficult to get bills passed in the parliament where you need the support from the opposition. It's just the nature of the game. And here in Trinidad, when one fails, one will survive. So you're not going to get that support from the other side. Dr. Rowley, 1 year after an election, I can tell you, there are some people who will, you have the clamor against the government. But we expected that. We expected that because there are certain decisions that you have to make when you're leading a country in a pandemic. And if you look around the world, the population is angry with governments. Just yesterday, there was a demonstration in Port of Spain, the anti-vax demonstration. There were about 200 people. It did not paint us in a nice picture, but that is happening around the world. That is happening around the world. And with social media now, 200 people can look like 200,000 people. So what is happening in Trinidad, I don't think it is anything that we didn't expect. This is 1 year after an election in a pandemic. We have grown accustomed to, and this is Trinidadians, of every year having a budget that gives you more and more and more. And even when the revenues were in decline, for some strange reason, governments continue to borrow and spread that gap between your revenue and your expenditure. There's no way you can continue with that. So you're going to have to take some harsh decisions, and you will get the pushback, but you have to do it early in your term. And I am sure at the end of the day, when the next 2025 comes around, we will see the benefits. And At the end of the day, you have, I always believe in governing for the best of the country, even if it means at the end of the day, you have to go out of office. It's better you go out of office for doing the right thing than stay in office by doing the wrong thing. So I think the government is quite prepared to do what it has to do in the interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And when that time comes in 2025 to vote, I mean, the population, if it's one thing in Trinidad, the democracy in Trinidad is clear. Governments, after 25 years, the Dr. William era, the PNM lost the election. And the next morning, there was a new government in office. And that continues. So if one in the 25th, 2025, a new government is voted in, I just hope that, you know, they continue to do the best for the country. Because that is what Dr. Ray taught us all. He said, do not fall in love with the office. He said, because our grandparents didn't leave this office for us. Nobody willed this to us. You came in to do a job, you do the job, but be quite prepared to leave the office when that time comes. And I'm quite prepared to leave the office doing the right thing than having or wanting to stay in office, knowing fully well I'm not doing the right thing for the country, because our children and grandchildren have to live here. And you want a place where the future generations can say, the generations in the past did the right thing for us. That is why we can enjoy it now.
In 2015, during the campaign, Prime Minister Rowley campaigns criticized the Cabinet Businesswar for having a crumbling infrastructure. He took office in 2015. In 2020, Trinidad infrastructure, maybe there might be some improvement, but it's still not what it is, because water, electricity, and floods are still occurring. It's your portfolio. What do you intend to do to shore up the infrastructure in Trinidad and Tobago, especially in areas of water, electricity, and to prevent floods?
No, so, okay, the water and electricity doesn't fall under the Ministry of Works and Transport. That falls under the public utilities. In Trinidad, we have, I would say, a very good supply of electricity. As a matter of fact, we have an oversupply of electricity because some of the plants that were supposed to come in were cancelled. So we have an oversupply. I think we have a fairly good electricity, the utility service for electricity. We have about, I would say, 80 to 90% of the country has full electricity. And we don't have power outages or anything like that to any extent. Our water distribution is where we have a challenge. Water distribution in Trinidad, and that is what is showing up in terms of our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is pretty solid, but we do have a lot of potholes. And I admit that because that falls under me, and I'm angry every day when I see these potholes. The reason for the pothole is almost 90% of it is caused by WASA leaks. And the reason for that is that WASA infrastructure is very old. And now what we realize is that the depth of these lines were not as deep as they were supposed to be, because a lot of it evolved over time, and they run water and then they build the roads on top of that. So we do have a challenge with potholes caused by water leaks. And the problem with WASA is the distribution. The distribution is poor. I know the Minister of Public Utilities, that is a major priority for him. And we spent a lot of money on WASA, but whether we got value for it, I think it's showing up now. No, we didn't get the kind of value, because when you look about how much billions were spent on WASA over the last couple of years, and today the infrastructure remains the same, the production of water is nowhere where it should be. We're still using a lot of desalination water, and you're paying for that in US dollars. So we do have a challenge with WASA, especially in the distribution and the age of their pipeline network. But I know there's a plan now to deal with WASA, and those are some of the harsh decisions that the government have to make. And that's why you see some pushback against the government and things like that. But you cannot go on like that. We had to deal with Petrotrin, because Petrotrin was basically a drain, and we had to deal with it. And now Petrotrin is turning around and even showing a profit, well, the Heritage new company, a profit of billions of dollars. It was a very difficult decision to make. Nobody was brave enough to make that decision, but you knew it had to be made. Similar to Caroni Limited. I mean, We know what was happening in the sugar industry, and somebody had to take that bold decision to say, hey, we need to get out of sugar now because it's really not profitable. And if you look at Trinidad and Tobago, the areas that boomed the most in the last 25 years was the areas that the sugarcane was planted. You look at Chaguanas and some of these areas, you can't buy a property in these areas anymore. So harsh decisions have to be taken. We took a harsh decision with Petrotrin. WASA is being looked at because you cannot continue to spend billions of dollars into an enterprise that, you still have a significant portion of the population not getting water, but you're pumping the money into the company. So something has to give with it. We are looking at the Port of Spain, and we are now looking at a private partner to come in with us because the Port of Spain, that was the #1 port in the Caribbean. For some reason, we did not go the way of Jamaica and most of the other ports where we actually brought in the private sector to partner with us. So you have problems there where the infrastructure needs changing. You need to upgrade all the equipment and everything. But if you do that as a government, the successful ports around the world are ports that are run with private partners. And we are now at the point where we're going out next month. We went out with an RFP, and now we are going out. Sorry, we went out with an EOI, and now we are going out with an RFP to look for a private partner to come in and partner with the government at the Port of Spain. That is another harsh decision. You have people pushing back at that. But if we don't do that, where are we going to be in 5 years from now or 10 years from now? Those are the harsh decisions that the Dr. Rowley government has to take. But I am pretty confident that the population will see the benefits of it, just like they saw the benefits of the Petrotrin, now Heritage, that they were losing billions of dollars, and now you're turning around and you're actually showing a profit. I think this year the profit was $2.5 billion.
Okay. Now, Piarco Airport, they say it's one of the oldest in the Caribbean, built way back in the 60s or late 50s. Renovations were made to it. But aviation experts are saying, given the other airports in the Caribbean that have been renovated and rebuilt and so forth, Piarco is not a 21st century airport. Will you undertake to build a new airport in Trinidad?
I don't know if you saw the records just 2 months ago. Piarco Airport got the #1 airport in the Caribbean, the cleanest airport in the Caribbean, and the 3rd best airport in Central America. That was from the company that grades all airports around the world. So we're very proud of Piarco, and I can tell you this year what we're doing at Piarco, we have spent a lot of money, again, 10, 15 years ago to develop an aerodrome in Piarco, and that land was just developed and lying there. I have given the mandate to the board that they have to operationalize that aerodrome at Piarco. So what you will find happening at Piarco, a lot of facilities that will complement the airport on the fringes of the airport. What was built at Piarco, I think that would have been between 2000 and 2005, was a terminal building. So what they built, people said we built a new airport. No, they built a new terminal building. Subsequent to that, a lot of new aspects were added to it. Last, there was that aerodrome, and we are going to actually put a lot of emphasis to bring that aerodrome in place, to bring the Piarco Airport on par with some of the international airports where you can get a lot of facilities, repairs to engines and so happening right on the compound of the Piarco. A lot of money was spent developing the land and so around the airport. Nothing was done. I have given the board the mandate that this year we should have our first tenant coming into that aeropark, the airport. But Piarco Airport, we are very proud that they actually won the best airport in the Caribbean, the cleanest airport in the Caribbean in 2021, and also the best airport in Central America.
Okay, a quick question here. The common market, CARICOM common market. How strongly is Trinidad supporting that?
I mean, again, that is for the Minister of Foreign Affairs. However, what I can add is that, I mean, listening to the Prime Minister is a very strong supporter of CARICOM. very strong supporter of CARICOM, and without me going into too much of CARICOM business, because I'm not the Minister of Foreign Affairs, what I can tell you is that, I mean, we depend heavily on CARICOM because most of our manufacturers, they export to CARICOM. So it's really in our interest to ensure that CARICOM survives, because our manufacturing sector is very strong. And what put us into that position is the support that we really get from the CARICOM countries. So, I mean, I can't see Trinidad not supporting CARICOM, because CARICOM is really a part of our major part of our markets.
Okay, thanks. Charles, over to you.
Minister, I know Mr. Warner from Massey Corporation in Trinidad. He's getting a team to challenge Guyana Local Content Act that was just passed in Parliament. One question, Minister, can CARICOM nationals buy land in Trinidad and Tobago to do business?
At the end of the day, again, I don't want to delve too much into the Guyanese politics and to go into an area where, you know, I should not be going into, especially, as you said, Mr. Juve Warner is trying to challenge the policies of Guyana. I would not want to go in there, but what I can say is that there are a lot of CARICOM businesses that are represented in Trinidad. The extent that they are in, we do have in the banking sector, NCBJ and all, they are all here in Trinidad and Tobago. So I don't want to get into that line of the internal politics, and especially the line that Jovi Warner is because I did see some articles in the newspaper, but I think I would want to leave those areas for the Minister of Trade.
Okay.
Because Guyana and Trinidad are too important to each other to have any sort of miscommunication or anything along that line.
And you're right, Minister, because in Trinidad local content policy, of course, the government must first give priority to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago for their upliftment. And I think every country who have a local content policy will want their citizens to benefit from it first. And I think that is the problem I think we're having now, that somehow Mr. Warner thinks that the new act is, something that's against the Treaty of Chaguaramas, which many scholars think it is not. But that we'll have to leave that, as you said, for the Ministry of.
I'm sure the lawyers will be able to, look at that and tell you exactly, if it's true, if it's not true. And I think that's why we have these brilliant lawyers, both in Guyana and in Trinidad, that can look at the Treaty of Chaguaramas and tell us. But I share your view. I think all countries in the world have a right to ensure that, their citizens benefit, at the level that they should from whatever the
sources in the country.
I think that is in Trinidad, that is in Guyana, that is any part of the world that you go, because we do have a policy of local content in our contracts that we write for even some of the foreign companies, like the Chinese companies, and so they have to, include in those contracts what part of it goes to the locals. And so. But I wouldn't want to delve into that. I'll leave that to Mr. Warner.
My research, Minister, Trinidad do have a very rigid local content policy, which I applauded Governor Trinidad before to take care of citizens. I know, Minister, before you became a minister, you're the CEO of a large corporation, that you were in real estate and you're in business and so on. What was the nature of your business?
I had some involvement in the supermarket business, the real estate business, the insurance business, things along that line. My father was, as you call them, a shopkeeper. So we grew up in the old time, the old time shop where the counter is about 100 feet long and you have about 20 scales on the counter and you're selling from a quarter pound all the way up. So I grew up in that sort of atmosphere. And from a very early age, I realized that, I really wanted to go into business. So the family was, diversified to an extent. We still do carry on most of the business. My wife is involved in the actual day-to-day running of the companies and so, while I take licks from the politicians whole day.
So you have given up on control of the business to your family.
You can't be involved in any business once you're a full-time employee as a minister. If you're an MP, you can still be in your business. If you're just a representative, once you're in the executive, you're a minister, you can't be involved in any business.
Okay, got you. And you, I saw somewhere that your father had a galvanized shop in Chaguanas, in San Grande.
San Grande, I mean, when I look at pictures from where they started, it was actually a little galvanized shop, and then that went down into a board, and then that went down into a little concrete building, and then that went down into a 3-story building. And then when I look what is standing there now, I wonder if that is the same piece of land that this galvanized shop, originally started on. And they actually, my father, he opened, the shop opened at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they would sell coffee and sandwiches and so, and then the shop would open at 8 o'clock and the store would open at 8 o'clock, and that went on until 8 o'clock in the night. So from a very young age, 6, 7 years, we would go with them. So you would have to get up at 4 o'clock and go to the shop, and then you go to school at 8 o'clock. And as school finished, 2 o'clock, you come back in the shop and you wait until 8 o'clock in the night to go home. And that is the cycle you grew up in. So that is why sometimes when I look at the challenge of being a minister and you have to work 7 days a week, late hours, I said, but I grew up doing that. So this is no different, really.
And I saw, Minister, in your tribute to your passing of your mom, and our condolences to the passing of your mom, you did give her a lot of credit for the support she gave to the business, cooking roti for the staff at night, and then cooking for lunch and so on. So your mom did mold you guys in a really positive way.
Yeah, I mean, we all grew up in the business, and my dad will go to work at 4 o'clock, but then my mom will join him at 8 o'clock and stay on. And she would stay home to make sure that she cooked lunch and everything to bring for us and breakfast. So it was really a family-oriented business. And I think that is really where the grounding came. And that is why I keep telling people, and some people might give me stick for saying this, most of my friends are UNC. I am a PNM, I'm a deputy leader of the People's National Movement. If you come to my home, you will see people of all the political parties in Trinidad and Tobago. Because when you come to my home, you see my friends. And I'm very close with Jack Warner. I am very close with a lot of members of the UNC. And Dr. Rowley is probably one of the persons who I admire the most in politics. I'm very close with all my PNM colleagues. So, I feel very comfortable to be around anybody. And that is because of the grounding of my parents, my father and mother. And if you go back to the history and you ask anybody about them, they never saw race, they never saw religion, they never saw anything. All they saw was people.
If Dr. Rowley planned to step down as leader of the PNM, will you want to contest the position of leader of the party?
No, that is not an option. So I was given the opportunity by Dr. Rowley, and I am there as long as Dr. Rowley needs me. After that, I do have a farm that I really look forward to going back to and look at my animals and things like that. You see, politics is something, to me, I don't want to make politics a career. There are some people who look at politics as a career. Politics is not my career. I was privileged to have been given the opportunity to serve. And if I have to work 7 days a week, I will work 24 hours a day, as long as I'm in the position. But when that time comes for me to give that position up, I will be very thankful to go back and enjoy whatever left I have in life to enjoy. I don't think I want to remain in a political office and let that be my legacy.
So you're planning to, whenever you leave politics and in government, are you going back to the business or you go back to the farm?
Well, the business is a way of life. You can't run from that because, the business is there. So I have, my wife is there, my daughter is there, my sisters, they work with me. I don't think I can go too far from the business, but I really would look forward to spending some time, after coming out of last 6 years in politics. That is like 6 years in politics is a lot of time in your life, you know, especially when your name is on everybody's. You go down to a pothole in Trinidad, they call for me. Well, it's my fault or not my fault. So, you know, I enjoy the job, but I do look forward to the day when I can look back and see and you know, be happy with what I have accomplished. And I do intend to be a career politician.
Where's your farm, Minister?
Oh, it's on one of the coasts in Trinidad. And I have a lot of cows and so if ever you're in Trinidad, you're welcome to come and pay a visit.
Anything in Tobago? You have any business in Tobago?
No. I'm not in business in Tobago. I have some family in Tobago. My close relatives, they have their business and so in Tobago. So whenever we go to Tobago, it's more to visit.
To relax, okay. So, Minister, yeah, go on, Doc.
Quick question, Minister. If Charles, you don't mind, since becoming minister, what are the two of your greatest achievements?
I feel very proud to know that coming in as minister, there were about 9 projects that could not be started. You look in terms of even the San Fernando Highway. I was told by some of the union leaders that I could never start that highway because they were owing so much money and so on. I said, serious. One, the projects that I was able to get going. I'm very proud that I could get a highway to Sandy Grande, which is my hometown, that people only dreamt about. I remember my father telling me that his father worked on this stretch, which was my grandfather, who I never knew. And since, I mean, that was probably, 100 years ago, that the people of Sandy Grande were clamoring for a highway. As someone coming from that area, I was able to get that kick-started, and they will see the fruits of that sometime later on this year. So the projects that I was able to get off the ground, and what I was able to do at the Ministry of Works and Transport is to change the culture in terms of how the procurement part of it went. We have strict procurement policies at the ministry and competitive tendering, something that I don't know that took place there before. So in terms of that aspect of it, I feel confident that if we continue that, what we put in place, Trinidadians at the Ministry of Works and Transport will continue to get value for money because we have reduced the price of construction significantly by the way we do business. Projects started, and you know, that makes me feel good. If you look at some of the projects, the Currap Interchange, it's a project not too far from where I live here. I was able to bring that project in at half the price that the previous government were about to award the contract. We're talking about a project that they were about to award for 550 million TT dollars. We were able to bring that project in for $221 million. Now that's a significant reduction, and a lot of the projects we were able to do like that. So I'm pretty happy that I was able to use the influence I had in business to bring it into the public sector and see some of the fruits.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much.
Some challenges, Minister. That's our achievement. What are some of the challenges?
The challenges basically is what you get from the public service. How do you get people to support you in the way that you're accustomed to in the private sector? Remember, as a minister, you're not even supposed to speak to the staff. You speak to the permanent secretary. I have been able to develop a very good relationship with almost all the staff at the ministry, where I can speak to them, but at the end of the day, it's almost difficult for them to keep up. Now, I will call some of the directors 12 o'clock in the night, and they'll be like, this man crazy on a Sunday, on a Saturday. So the challenge is how you graduate from the private sector into the public sector. And you want to go. Child funding has been a challenge for me because in the private sector, I can go to a bank and borrow the money and get it done and get that done. In the public sector, you can't do that. So you can't work at the pace you want to work at. But it is what it is. And I feel we would have accomplished quite a lot. The relationship with me and my staff, I mean, it's an excellent relationship. And as some of the senior staff tell me, it's almost as you're working with family because it's an open door policy to everybody. And, it is something that I feel I am very happy that there I leave the ministry, I can turn back and say, look, I've made a lot of friends in the office.
And that's a good thing being a businessman, Minister, and then going into politics. You do have that mindset because in the private sector, you have to work with everyone around you. And then you take that into the public sector, and being such a hard worker in the private sector, you get things done. I hope many of the other ministers, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but around the Caribbean, can imitate some of the qualities that you have so that at least we can get more done out of government. So, Minister, we want to thank you so much for being here this evening. In closing, do you want to say anything tonight?
Thank you. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come on this program. When I got the invitation, I was like, "You sure you want to do that?" And I said yes, because speaking to you guys, especially where your listenership is, you have a big listenership in Guyana and around the Caribbean. I feel, very honored and privileged to be part of this program. And I feel we all still need to work together because Guyana, Trinidad, Jamaica, Barbados, we have a lot of work to do if this whole Caribbean region have to move forward. Guyana especially, Guyana have a major role to play going forward. And I think you have earned your keeps to the people of Guyana, and the Caribbean now will be looking at you for a lot of leadership and the way you do business, because we all have to put our resources together if this Caribbean region have to stay as a region where we can command respect from the bigger players of the world.
Thank you, Minister. Dr. Rose, in closing.
Minister, I must thank you very much for coming at such a short notice, and you did an excellent job. This is beyond what I was expecting. Okay. So thank you again, and we will talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Dr. Rose. Thank you, our audience. And don't forget, on Wednesday, Dr. Bisram will have a tribute to Dr. Isi Prasad and to Mr. Balam Singh Roy. So please tune in on Wednesday to that program. To all our viewers, good night. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Good night.